Historical overview. Is there an external world? A philosopher is someone who knows something about knowing which nobody else knows so well. Descartes. There is nothing so absurd. There is nothing so absurd that it has not been said by philosophers. Cicero. Is not the whole of a philosopher like writing in a honey? It looks wonderful at first sight, but when you look again, when you look it again, it is all gone. Only the smear is left. Einstein. Wow. Is there a physical world independent of humanity? Are there mountains, trees, land, sea, and sky, all of which exist whether or not human beings are there to perceive these objects? The question seems silly. Of course there is. Do we not observe this world constantly? Do not our senses give us continuous evidence of the existence of this world? However, thoughtful people are not above questioning the obvious, even if only to confirm it. Let us begin by turning to the philosophers, the lovers of wisdom, who have for centuries pondered all matters concerning humanity and our world, but who, like unrequited lovers, often felt rejected. Some of the greatest philosophers have considered this very subject of the existence of the external world. Some have denied it. Others have admitted its existence, but have seriously doubted how much we can know about the external world and how reliable our knowledge is. Although Bertrand Russell, himself an outstanding philosopher, said our knowledge of the external world, philosophy from the earliest time has made greater claims and achieved fewer results than any other branch of learning. That's interesting. We should at least examine what some of the philosophers have had to say. Right. We shall be concerned primarily with those who have seriously questioned our knowledge of the external world. The first of the ancient Greek philosophers to deal with these questions was Heraclitus, who lived about 500 BC. Heraclitus did not deny that there is an external world, but maintained that everything in the world is constantly changing. As he put it, one cannot step twice into the same river, so whatever facts we may think we have gathered about the physical world no longer obtain in the very next instant. Wow, this is so insightful. Epicurus, 341 to 220 BC, in contrast, held to the fundamental principle that our senses are the infallible guide to truth. They tell us that matter exists, that motion occurs, and that the ultimate realities are bodies composed of the atoms existing in the void. They have existed forever and cannot be destroyed. They are indivisible and unchangeable. Wow. Plato, 422, from 427 to 347 BC, the most influential philosopher of all time, was also interested in this problem. He admitted the existence of the external world, but came to the conclusion that the world perceived by the senses is momentary, protein, ever-changing and unreliable. The true world is a world of ideas, which is unchangeable and incorruptible. Yet, this world of the idea is not accessible to the sense, but only to the mind. Interesting. Okay. Yoy. Observations are useless. Thus, in the Republic, Plato states clearly that the reality behind the appearances, what is inherently true of them, is mathematical. Wow. To understand reality is to elicit it from the appearances, not to impose it on them. Mathematics is the foundation of the true being, the eternally real. In emphasizing the importance of mathematics, Plato conceived of it as a part of the more general system of the abstract, non-material, ideal ideas. These are models of the perfection. These are the models of perfection that everything in the universe, the material, the ethical, and the aesthetic, strives to attain, Plato says in the Republic. But if anyone tries to learn about things of the sense, whether gaping up or blinking down, I'd never say that he really learns, for nothing of this kind admits of the true knowledge, nor would I say that his soul looks up but down, even though he studies floating on his back on the sea or land. Hello, bud. What you doing there? Are you eating some worms? Oh, bye. Okay. Plutarch relates in his Life of Marcellus that Eudoxus and Aristides, famous contemporaries of the Plato, used the physical arguments to prove mathematical results. However, Plato indignantly denounced such proof as a corruption of the geometry. Wow. They utilize sensuous facts in place of the pure reasoning. Don't be emotional, please. Be rational. Plato's attitude towards astronomy illustrates his position on the knowledge that we should seek. This science, he said, is not concerned with the movements of the visible heavenly bodies. The arrangement of the stars in the heavens and their apparent movements are indeed wonderful and beautiful to behold, but more observations and explanations of their motions fall far short of true astronomy. Right. Before we can attain to this true science, we must leave the heavens alone. For true astronomy deals with the laws of the motion of the true stars in a mathematical heaven, of which the visible heaven is but an imperfect expression. Right. Through Socrates in words now famous, Plato tells us the astronomers' true concerns. These sparks that paint the sky, since they are decorations on the visible surface, we must regard to be sure as the fairest and most exact of the material things, but we must recognize that they fall far short of the truth, the movements namely of the real speed and real slowness in the true number and in all true figures. These can be apprehended only by reason but not by sight. Therefore, we must use the blasonly of the heavens merely as patterns to aid in the study of those realities, if we are to have a part in the true science of the astronomy. Right. This conception of the astronomy staggers the modern mind, and scholars have not hesitated to indict Plato's downgrading of the sensory experiences as a grave disservice to the advancement of the science. We should recognize, however, that the role here assigned to the astronomer parallels precisely the course followed successfully by the geometrician, who studies the mental idealizations of, for example, triangles, rather than the particular triangular objects. Right. In Plato's time, observational astronomy had been pursued virtually to the limits then attainable, and he may have thought that further progress is now awaited, some hard thinking and theorizing on the assembled informations. Plato's conception of the abstract ideals did unfortunately retard progress in the experimental science for centuries. It implies that true knowledge could be acquired only through the philosophical contemplation of the abstract idea and not through the observation of the accidental and imperfect things in the real world. However, there are philosophers who accepted this existence of the external world and believed that we can acquire sound knowledge from our sensations. Aristotle, in opposition to Plato, not only affirmed the existence of the world external to humanity, but also maintains that our ideas about the world are obtained by abstracting from its ideas common to various classes of the material object we perceive, such as a triangle, shapes, spheres, foliage, and mountains. He criticized Plato's otherworldliness and his reduction of the science to the mathematics. Aristotle, physicist in the literal science of the world. Aristotle, the physicist in the literal sense of the word, believed in the material things as primary substance and source of the reality. Physics and science generally must study the physical world and obtain truth from it. Thus, genuine knowledge is obtained from sense experience by intuition and by abstraction. These abstractions have no existence independent of human minds, right? To arrive at truth, Aristotle used what he called universals, general qualities that are abstracted from real things. In his words, we must start with things which are knowable and observable to us, and proceed towards those things which are clearer and more knowable by nature. He took the obvious sensuous qualities of the objects, hypothesized them, and elaborated them to independent mental concepts. Specifically, above the central earth, which includes the whole volume of the water, comes the region occupied by air. Higher still, extending as far as the moon, is a substance that we call fire, although in reality it is a mixture of the fire and air. They owe their existence, says Aristotle, to four principles: hot, cold, dry, and moist. These can combine in pairs in 6 ways, but 2 of the combinations, hot with cold, dry with moist, are inherently impossible. The remaining 4 pairs generate the 4 elements. Thus, the earth is cold and dry, water cold and moist, air hot and moist, and fire hot and dry. The elements, let me repeat this sentence again. These can combine in the pair in 6 ways, but 2 of the combinations, hot with cold, dry with moist, are inherently impossible. The remaining 4 pairs generate the 4 elements. Thus, the earth is cold and dry, dry water, cold and moist air, hot and moist, and fire, hot and dry. The elements are not eternal. On the contrary, matter is continuously passing from the one form to another. This is so insightful, isn't it? It's so great. I mean, this is correct as far as you go to the basic physics, but not in quantum physics. So the elements are not eternal. On the contrary, matter is continuously passing from one form to another. All the universe, from Earth out as far as the moon, is a region undergoing constant change, corruption, mortality, and decay, as a phenomena of the climate and geology vividly attest. Although their influence is unmistakable, One might be inclined to dismiss the view of Greek philosophers because while their culture emphasized mathematics, they lived in what may justifiably be called a pre-scientific world. They did not experiment much and on the whole lived apart from the world of science as we know it today. During the Middle Ages, concern about the external world was unimportant. Theology was a supreme concern. Yes, theology, of course. Jesus, God, Allah. Yahweh, of course. Not until the Renaissance did philosophers turn with highlighted interest to the physical world. In Western Europe especially, we can see the beginning of the modern philosophy and with it, a new interest in science. René Descartes, 1596 to 1650, is the founder of modern philosophy. Yes, of course. His discourse on the method of the rightly conducting the reason and seeking truth in the science, 1637, which contains three appendices: geometry, dioptric, and meteors, dioptic and meteors, is a classic. Although Descartes thought that his philosophical and scientific doctrines subverted Aristotelianism and scholasticism, he was at heart a scholastic or Aristotelian. Sure. He followed in the footsteps of Aristotle and drew from his own mind propositions about the nature of being and reality, of course. Perhaps for this very reason, his writing influenced the 17th centuries more extensively than the researchers of those who had begun to draw truth from their observation and experimentations, sources that were wholly at variance with the traditional ones. Right. Seeing that there was a logical possibility that all his beliefs were false, Descartes thought, the opposite meaning of the float. Yeah. So Descartes sought a solid base on which he might build an edifice of truth. He found but one fact he could be sure of: cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Right. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Because he recognized that he was finite and imperfect. Yes, this is what I'm really always thinking about myself. He reasoned that this very sense of his limitation implied that there had to be an infinite and perfect being against whom he measured himself. Wow. This being, God, had to exist because he would not be perfect if he lacked the essential attribute of the existence. To Descartes' this result, God's existence was more important for science than for theology, for it afforded the possibility of solving the central problem of the existence of the unobject world. Of course. I mean, I don't believe God, no. Because all our knowledge of our world external to our minds comes to us through sense impressions, right? The question arises whether there exists anything other than just these, or whether objective reality is an illusion. Yes, it is probable, it is possible. Just illusion, everything outside you is illusion. To this question, Descartes answered that God, being perfect, would not be deceiver. He would not make us believe in the existence of the material universe if it were not real. This objective reality can be grasped primarily through the physical attribute of the extension. This is innate in the very notion of the matter, which itself is not derived from the senses. Therefore, no knowledge of the material world is, save in an indirect manner, derived from the senses. So, therefore, no knowledge of the material world is derived from the senses. Descartes was also able to classify his observation of the material object into the primary and secondary qualities. Thus, color is secondary because it is perceived only by senses, in other words, by brain, neural network, whereas extension and motion are primary. Haha. To Descartes, the entire physical universe is a great machine operating according to the law that may be discovered by human reasons, particularly mathematical reasoning. Wow! He duplicated the experimentations, although he did experiment in biology, right? Responding directly to the knowledge that was being acquired in mathematics and science, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, 1588 to 1679, affirmed in his Leviathan, 1651, that external to us there is only matter in motion. External bodies press against our sense organs and by purely mechanical process produces sensations in our brains. Right. All knowledge is derived from these sensations, which then become image in the brain. When a train of the image arrives, it recalls others already received. Right, making a neural circuit connection. Right. As for example, the image of an apple recalls that of a tree. Thought is the organization of chains of images. Yes. Thought is the organization of chains of images. Specifically, names are attached to the bodies and properties of bodies are as they appear in the images, and thought consists in the connecting these names by assertions and in seeking the relations that necessarily hold among these assertions. Right. Hobbes, in his book Human Nature, 1650, said that ideas are images or memories of what it is received through the senses. There are no innate ideas or ideals, no universals or abstract ideas. Triangle means merely the idea, image of the all triangle perceived, all triangles perceived. Wow! All substances that gives rise to the idea is material or corporeal. In fact, the mind too is substance. Language, for example, the language of science and mathematics consists only of symbols or names for experiences. Right. All knowledge is but remembrance, and the mind works with words that are but names for things. True and false are attributes of names, not of things. That humans are living creatures is true because whatever is called human is also called a living creature. Knowledge is obtained when the regularities are discovered by the brain. Wow. Knowledge is obtained when the regularities are discovered by brains as it organizes and relates their assertions about physical objects. And mathematical activity produces just such as regularities, right? Hence, the mathematical activity of the brain produces a genuine knowledge of the physical world, and mathematical knowledge is truth. In fact, reality is accessible to us only in the form of the mathematics. Wow, how interesting, how interesting. So strongly did Hobbes define the exclusive right of the mathematics to truths that even the mathematicians objected. In a letter to a leading physicist of the age, Christian Huygens, the mathematician John Wallis wrote of Hobbes. Our Leviathan is furiously attacking and destroying our universities, and not only our but all, and especially ministers and the clergy and all religion, as though the Christian world had no sound knowledge. None that was not ridiculous either in philosophy or religion, and as though men could not understand religions if they did not understand philosophy, nor philosophy unless they knew mathematics. Ha ha ha, what an irony. This is a first class irony. That's interesting. The emphasis placed by Hobbes on the purely physical origin of the sensations and the unlimited actions of the brain in reasoning shocked many philosophers to whom the mind was more than the mass of the matter acting mechanically. In his essay concerning human understanding, published in the 1690s, John Locke, 1632 to 1704, began somewhat as Hobbes did, but unlike Descartes, by asserting that there are no innate ideas in humans. Men are born with minds as empty as blank tablets. Right.